All right, so today we're going to continue in our project for the client that has that farmhouse with a couple of things out there. And today we're going to be talking about how we clean up the site plan. We're going to be adding general notes, keyed notes to each sheet, depending on what we need. We're going to be talking about why we need general notes and keyed notes. We're going to be cleaning up E104 because it looks pretty terrible at the moment, overlapping and whatnot. We're going to also be adding details as needed, note symbols and abbreviation page. We're also adding sheet specs, and then we're going to do a high level of sheet specs versus book specs. I've actually done a video a while back. It's one of my early ones over the differences and also how to edit book specs in Word using a specific software that we use here at our company. So if you need additional details, people on YouTube, feel free to go look at the other video. It's actually like 5 minutes long, so it's not that bad. And then we're going to be talking about what a guide grid is, where it would be used, and then also when we go to review these drawings prior to giving them to the EOR or prior to sealing them, if you are the engineer of record, what are you looking at? How are you looking at it? And I'm going to use what's called the 3-hat method. So we'll get into that here in just a second. All right, so we're going to start off with cleaning up our site plan. It's right there. So normally site plans, you want the overall view, you want the big picture so that if a contractor looks at it and looks at an actual like paper map or Google Maps or something, they can quickly identify where this thing is, the orientation that it's in, so on and so forth. Sometimes the campuses are too large to be able to put it all on a single site plan, site view. So you can put what's called a guide down here and it'll hold the entire campus basically. And it'll be like a little blacked out spot of where you're showing here. Now on this specific one is literally in the middle of nowhere. Nothing surrounding it but dirt and wind and rocks. So there's not a whole lot we can do to show the overall view of this. But the one thing I did want to do was actually get this to scale. Because right now it's just this little rectangle in the middle of nowhere. Makes no sense to pretty much anybody. Oops, the wrong way. By the same token, most companies will want you to be at like a 1 to 10 or a 1 inch to something feet scale. It doesn't matter if it looks weird or wonky or whatnot, that's what they want. Luckily, I've been able to kind of avoid that for the most part and do just pretty much whatever I want, however, whatever size I want. There's a few architects I've been known to work with. They're like, it's going to be at this size. Okay, well, that's fine. You know, one-offs are all right with me. So obviously you can see that I'm really very large compared to what I need to be. So I'm going to go ahead and change my view. I'm sorry, my crop region. Oh, I drew these in manually. That's what it was. And I don't remember why, but let's go ahead and look at what our crop region is. So our crop region should be roughly right around the information we're looking for. Something like that. All right, and the easiest way to redo that, to clean it up, is to and then just bring it in again. And it cleans it up real nice and good. Just like so. A lot of the time you will label major equipment on the site plan, such as the utility transformer, MTS, stuff like that. And since we're at this scale and we're already here, we can just go ahead and do it. Most of the time, these smaller items, you know, you won't really label, but since it's quick and easy and we're already here, we can just do it real fast. Supposedly real fast. All right. Also on a site plan, you normally want a north pointing arrow indicating which way is north. It's normally either right down here with your overall view, overall campus, or sitting right here just to the left of your site plan. Since I don't have any north arrows already loaded in here, since we started from a blank slate, I'm just going to say, don't forget your north arrow.
It might be a good time to mention it, because I learned this recently, is that I think it's 3, if I remember right. there's 3 different north arrows that could be put on plans. But I learned that recently. I was like, I didn't know there was 3. I'm like, I knew of 2, like the sheet north and like and I guess true north is what it is. I've never heard of I don't remember what the third one is.
So Revit out of the box apparently has 2 north arrows that you can pull in. I did literally just says north arrow 1, north arrow 2. This isn't the normal arrows that I see, and I actually did find. Well, this is one of the north arrows that we use. The other one's real fancy. It's got a calligraphy in with a big, huge arrow pointing up. But the other thing I wanted to point out was this is the campus. This is just some random project I pulled up that I've worked on. This is the campus. I did, the picture down in the southeast, the bottom right corner that I was talking about. So this is kind of what you would be normally looking at. The site plan is a small portion of the overall campus, which would be this rectangle right there. And then if it's still really hard to figure out, you can throw a call out on there like, hey, this is exactly what we're looking at. So a lot of the times this image will be a lot larger, and this call out will be on a separate sheet, which would be, the next sheet that we would be down. Anyways, that's good to know. I'll definitely have to go Google that one. So cleaning up site plan. So this looks right overall as far as cleaning it up. Yes, you can center this stuff, take measurements. Quite frequently, I will actually center this. Okay, what's the distance from here to here? What's the distance from here to here? Is this distance look about right? Is it something not dumb? Right now, it's some weird dimension. A lot of that kind of depends on time and who the client is. So do that on a client by client basis. So the next thing was we were going to add general notes and key notes. So for the company that we work for, we have these views. Right? Oh, that's demolition. I grabbed the totally wrong one. So we have these views. And for each sheet, we create a new view. And I understand their thought process, and I completely disagree with it, but I follow it because it's the company we work for, not my idea. The other thing is they put these in here manually for each one, whereas I don't. I just use the generally listed out, and I'll typically put something like that right there so that whoever knows, hey, this is what a new work key note looks like.
Yeah, I've seen it done both ways. I've also seen the new work note be a hexagon over a diamond. See that occasionally.
Yeah, and growing up through the industry, I've seen new work key notes. Squares, diamonds, hexagons, circles, anything. Like a lot of it just depends on what company you're at and what they started off doing or however they were taught. So. That's why general contractors, that's why here, generally, I put it there so that electrical contractors can go, new key work notes for this EOR are, this is a diamond, so they know, okay, diamonds. And then the demo notes for us are squares, apparently. So, yeah. So the people on YouTube, your company will probably have something different. Yeah.
Is it a standard to have the keyed notes different? I'm gonna use shapes. Like, does it have to be like? Because at the end of the day, if you're on it's very occasional that you have one plan that shows new work and demo. But typically, if you're doing that, you probably are only showing one set of like symbols for keyed notes. So is it just a standard thing as to why they have separate ones? Like, meaning, like you said, like, I think it's squares for demo and diamonds for new work, or like I've seen, like I said, circles for demo and then hexagons for new. Like, is it a standard thing that you do that, or is it just, I don't know, that was something someone made up and now it's just followed?
So from my understanding, there is no standard when it comes to stuff like that. And when I mean stuff like that, like a lot of things, like what is this symbol supposed to look like? How are we supposed to word this? what are drawings overall supposed to look like? Like, I know ANSI, American National Standards Institute, was actually trying to push out an actual standard for controls, for instance. These are what control symbols are supposed to look like. These are what these symbols are supposed to look like. But as far as, no, everybody's general note should look like this, keyed note should look like that, demo note should look like that. No, there's no standard out there that I know of, and it just started from whoever had the brilliant idea.
The
Now,
most
regarding-
important thing is making sure you put it on your legend, whatever you end up using.
Exactly. Yep. Now, regarding something else you said, normally you don't have, we'll just call it demo and new work on the same sheet. Surprisingly enough, in one of the industries I work in, that's a very common thing. Because if we're just demolishing lights and putting in a door in, let's just say, a hospital, because that was a recent project, it was literally 4 pages worth of plan set, demo stuff on the left, new work on the right. Note symbols abbreviation page 1. This was page 2. Page 3 was details, and page 4 was specs. Like, done. Something like that. We didn't need 3 or 4 different things, 3 or 4 different sheets of plans, of drawings, trying to describe what we were wanting to do, because we were literally moving a light and putting in a door. So, and at that point, it is incredibly helpful to have, was it diamonds on the right and squares on the left, or circles on the left and hexagons on the right. So, I don't think that's what you had asked, but you had said that, so I want to at least put that out there for people on YouTube to have.
You answered it. You pretty much said that there's no real standard, but the reasons why they kind of came up with it is probably for reasons you just kind of explained.
Yeah. Okay. That works. All right. All right. So for the people on YouTube, let's see if I want to. All right. Yeah, we'll do it like that. So normally your front page is going to be notes, symbols, and abbreviations, which you can't really see. And we'll get into this here in a minute. But normally this sheet will have a lot of general notes on there. There are specific notes that are incredibly important that are sometimes duplicated here. There's also general notes that aren't shown on, the E101 that probably need to be shown here, that are an after fact or job specific of, hey, talk to the client to make sure that you give them 2 weeks heads up before you shut everything down to connect this piece of equipment or something. That, to me, that note right there always goes in the general notes on each sheet, period. Because clients hate it whenever some electrical contractor shuts everything down and they didn't know it was coming. And if there's a big hubbub, I can point to, one location on sheet 1 and then every other sheet that has this thing. It's like, no, you should have known this one. Excuse me. So general notes are, generally speaking, not anything specific unless to the design itself. Keyed notes, which, by the way, I've heard it keyed, K-E-Y-E-D, and just key notes. I'm kind of a key notes feller. This is normally what I show on my drawings, key, K-E-Y, instead of K-E-Y-E-D. I honestly don't know if there's a right or a wrong way, but it's just what my understanding is as I've gone along.
I've seen them both ways too.
Yeah, and I don't care if somebody throws key notes on there and I'm not doing the drafting. Great, I'm not going to have them change it. But when I am doing the drafting, it is always key notes. So the key notes specifically, for people on YouTube, are, okay, great. You have this picture. It's worth 1,000 words, but you still kind of need words. What are we doing? Who's buying this utility transformer? Who's setting this thing? Who's providing the pad underneath? Who is purchasing this? Is the client? Is the owner? Is the EC? Is the engineer of record? Is who's buying this stuff? So that's where a lot of those key notes come into play. Like, okay, utility is providing transformer. EC, you're going to provide from this this point all the way to that point. Normally it's 2 6-inch conduits coming in for the medium voltage side, and then however many conduits coming out. And you also have a pad mount the pad that this thing is mounted to. 80% of the time, I'd say most ECs understand that, but to have it written out in the keynotes in the contract document somewhere is very helpful. So there's no question whatsoever, especially if you ever go to court and they go, "You didn't tell me to buy this." Well, I kind of did. It's right there. I would. The other thing I would want to talk about is a lot of people, start off these keynotes with electrical contractor shell. Well, in court, at least in Texas and North Carolina so far that I've experienced, these are electrical sheets. These are electrical contract documents. Electrical contractor is understood. And anytime it's not the electrical contractor, that's the point in time where you should call out controls contractor or lightning protection contractor or whatever. If you just say provide, I don't know, MTS1, provide 4-pole, 200 amp. I don't remember what all the information was. Provide this type of MTS. Okay, well, it's understood that is directed towards the electrical contractor. Now, for us here at our company, it is going to be a EOR by EOR basis. Some EORs require us to call out, electrical contractor shell, and other ones don't, like myself. So just so that you know, and I'm sure that's true with the mechanical people. I'm sure you've come across that at least once or twice.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. And then also this, I don't know if I learned this from you or from someone else, is like, be careful the verbiage you use when you say electrical contractor to provide or electrical contractor shall furnish. Like, all of those things mean different things, and they don't necessarily mean that they're actually installing it. Like, I did learn that, like, the wording that you use matters, as in telling them what they're doing, because providing doesn't necessarily mean that they're installing it.
You're absolutely.
That's correct, right?
Yeah, you're dead on. So what I do, because the last company I came from, like, that's just how we handle things. I'm looking for something specific. Give me a second. Where's that? I think that's it.
Like, equipment sometimes can be you could say, like, sometimes the equipment's provided by the owner. Like, sometimes don't they do like prepackaged things? So, like, you can say, like, equipment shall be provided by owner, whatever contractor to install. That typically also happens with controls, because most of the time you want controls contractor to, I believe, like, certain things you want them to provide, but then, like, you want the electrical contractor to do certain things. Like, that's where it kind of really matters what you put.
Yes, that is very accurate. And the way I handle that, because I've seen that go to court before as well. In here at our company, we have this thing for electrical general notes. Other companies have something similar that usually goes on, the first sheet. But in here at the very end, I will come in and actually define what provide means. I've got it all written down. I'm not going to provide it verbatim because I don't want to be held legally liable. But the idea is, when provide is written in these contract documents, it means the electrical contractor is to purchase, install, and do a few other things for a turnkey product of said equipment or whatever. It's basically saying, if you see provide, that means the whole 9 yards, the whole gambit. You're going to go out, purchase this, submit it, get approval, install it, make sure it works. And if something blows up, you're going to have to replace it because that was totally on you. When the owner is providing stuff, occasionally I'll need to put owner provided equipment definition in here. And that's usually a case by case basis. Because sometimes the EC is still responsible for actually getting it to the site or storing it on site. So that's a whole different definition depending on what project it is. So for future use, if you're just going with provide and it's not already predefined in anywhere in your general notes here, I highly recommend defining it. And for you, by the way, if you want that definition, let me know. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, so that's that. We'll get to those here in a minute. All right, so that's the idea behind new work keynotes. I'm not going to get into. I'm not going to sit here and type everything out. The last thing I wanted to say on those was each EOR has their style of typing these. So as you come up through the ranks and as you grow as an engineer, find the styles that you like, find the styles that people have learned lessons from, and kind of build your own style, because there's no, standard way of writing this. I have my style, I would say probably 50% based on things that make sense to me and how I word it, and how I've had conversations with ECs in the field going, okay, tell me what you didn't like, tell me what didn't make sense. And they'll be like, this keynote makes no sense whatsoever. I don't understand what you're saying. Oh, okay, well, this is what I meant. And they'll sit there and say, well, why didn't you word it like this? Oh, I love that idea. I'm going to change my way of writing that now. And that's how I have formed my way of doing this. The other 50% is, court cases and whatever else and stuff. Because, all this stuff, all the court cases and everything is kind of like public knowledge out there. So if you ever want to go into it, it's all public record of, well, this said this and that said that and this, that, and the other, and this is what the court decided. So, yes.
I think something else to add, like you said about the whole, you find your style, you find notes that you typically like, and then you typically reuse those notes. I think this applies to not just notes, but just anything in general. If there's something you like that you've used from a previous project, there's nothing wrong with bringing it to the new one, but fully check through to make sure that it doesn't have things that really don't apply to the project. Like, for example, just because the note's a great note and it like mostly goes with the project you're going over, doesn't mean it always 100% applies to it. So always make sure like you edit things and make note to edit things when you pull things from other projects that you like using. Does that make sense? Like, for example, like a detail, say, for example, you have a great detail that you bring on to that you like using, you bring it to another project, but it's referencing something specific in the project you pulled it from. Well, that's not going to make a bit of sense to whoever's going to look at that detail because it's referencing something that the project you're currently working on doesn't even have. So your details, notes, and everything you grab from other things that are great notes are great only if they are edited for the project you're using. You said there's some that really do actually apply to all, but you always want to make sure you double check.
I completely agree with that statement. Absolutely. And ironically, I showed you that that snippet. I think it's already gone now. Of the whatever. I just pulled this from that exact same job, and I copied these notes out of an EV project that you and I actually worked on. On that project,
we specifying Duke Energy a lot.
We referenced specific things in at that site, and I actually had to take them out of these bottom two notes. So I completely agree with what you're saying. So people on YouTube, if you're going to copy and paste, actually read the notes. Don't be lazy. Don't skim over them. Like, read them, because there's going to be specific information in there, and you're going to look like an idiot, or you're going to be liable if something's wrong. So yes.
And if you bring something in that, like from a designer's perspective, if you're not 100% knowledgeable about maybe what you're exactly working on, if you pull something in, just make sure you raise a red flag of like, hey, maybe I need more information to know if this actually applies to said project.
Exactly. All right. So that's all I've got on general notes, keynotes. You got any additional input on that one?
I don't think so. I do know, apart from like the typical ones you normally see, like it's always good to add notes as it applies to the job. Like, I think you've mentioned this on a previous video, but like say there's something that you saw on site that the contractor should maybe know about, apart from saying, like, I know you have your verbiage of saying like contractor shall go to site and do all these things before they actually bid the job. It's always good to mention things that might be important to know. Like, yes, you're showing a panel just on the wall, But if there's no context that, hey, maybe there's some other things on this wall that you should probably know that are there that you might want to avoid, but you don't necessarily want to show, you can always use keyed notes for things like that. That's not just like electrical contractor shall provide blah blah blah. Like there's more other ways you could use notes than just saying who's supposed to be providing what and how it's supposed to be installed.
Yes, I completely agree with that statement. Completely agree with that statement. I don't think I forgot anything to add, but that was quite well worded. So
Thanks.
yeah, that was I have nothing to add to that. That was good.
Learned a lot, you know.
You've been at it for a day or two, so
Yeah.
all right. So the next thing is we're going to clean up E104, and the quickest, easiest way to do this is, since we're already showing relative location of utility transformer in relation to this, we can just change the crop region on this thing and bring it down like so. It doesn't have to be perfect. And another way to do this, if I was real concerned with it, is you can actually get into here. I'm going to show crop region and copy. So I'm going to edit crop region, tab, click, Control C, cancel that one. Then I'm going to get into this one, edit crop region, tab, click, delete, Control V, and then finish. Go through? I don't think that went through, did it? Did not go through. Must have fat fingered something. There we go. Did fat finger something. Okay, so I'm going to finish that. Here we go. And now this view and this view have the exact same views, view regions. I mean, I see I cut my door off, but I'm just trying to show you, generally speaking, that is how I do it, so that all my views look the same across the board, and I ain't got to worry about it. And you can just line it up as needed. Won't do that yet. Yeah. Again, you would have general notes, keyed notes here, saying whatever information, additional details you needed here, defining, okay, yeah, we never labeled all this stuff, did we? So we'd probably label the hot water heater. Actually, that's probably about it, because that'd be on the plumbing plans. Everything else, I think we got labeled. The lights, we would also label, which I don't have a tag in there, what type of light fixtures. I would provide a lighting fixture schedule over here that would provide, tag, what, who's the manufacturer, what light is this designed around, what wattage is it LED versus like T8 or something, is it dimmable, what's the voltage. That type of information will be in the lighting fixture schedule, which I'm not going to do because it's one light and I'm going to define that somewhere else. And then you would also have the north arrow, whether it's right here or right here in the corner. Any questions on that?
No.
Right, so now I'm going to go add the details as needed. So I have put in a lot of
I would
margin.
say this might be good to mention with the north arrow. Make sure that I don't know. I'm not saying this comes up a lot, but sometimes, as much as yes, your overall plan is put a certain way on the plan, and your north arrow is actually up, doesn't necessarily mean when you get like enlarged plans or your smaller plans that they're actually going to be in the same direction. So make sure that you're not just copying north arrows and not paying attention that if they're actually pointing in the right direction, because they don't necessarily always apply the same. Does that make sense? I know it doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. And when it does, you need to make sure that it's facing the right way.
You're absolutely correct. Yeah, when you place these north arrows, make sure you just go to Google Earth, Google Maps, whatever, and just make sure you're in the right orientation. You're absolutely right. Because I just came across that on another project. So,
like for example, you could easily, if it fit better, because maybe these rooms were actually bigger, that these rooms are actually turned 90 degrees, then your north arrow would be 90 degrees from what your overall plan is. And you want to make sure that you're indicating that that's actually the case.
Exactly. Yes, I completely agree with that statement. All right. see what we got. Add details needed. Okay. So I pulled in a bunch of just kind of details that we already have developed. You people on YouTube, hopefully that y'all have details at y'all's firm or pre-made details or however that's going to work that you can just pull in, use as needed. I honestly have no idea if all of these are actually needed on here, but I just grabbed some that made somewhat sense. There's several different ways you could do this. Here at our company, we just have random views. At previous companies I've actually been at, we developed what were basically grids. They were 6-inch by 6-inch or 6-inch by 12-inch or 12 by 12. Like we could define, is it a 1x1, 1x2 grid, 2x1, so on and so forth. And the detail had to fit inside that grid. And whenever you come to your details sheet, it made it look so much more clean and neat and very easy to follow. Here at our company, we don't do that. Including apparently having not to scale here already there. But yeah, anyways, so normally you'll have a detail sheet that goes into, okay, how high are you supposed to mount receptacles or fire alarms or, receptacles down here, so on and so forth. I would probably never actually show this on one of mine, but I found it and it just talked about how to do a grounding detail in a receptacle. Sure, why not? I probably wouldn't go into that. And then obviously clearances, yes, these two are definitely on every single project I push out because it's an NEC requirement. And in some of the states that I seal drawings in, you actually have to show this or they will reject it in AHJ review. So any questions on details from you?
No.
Okay. Oh, and sorry for everybody on YouTube, there is occasionally a project where it's something special. She actually mentioned, if there's something specific you've got to call out, not just a provide and install MTS, or there's something special going on when you're trying to mount this or install this, or use the EOR or designer know of something that's not normal. That's where a custom detail comes into play. Just draft it, just create it as needed. It wouldn't be the first time they'd ever seen a custom detail. Probably won't be the last. Probably won't be the last time you need to make a custom detail. So that's one of the good things about details. They're not standardized at all. They're just trying to portray information for the contractor to use.
Like I see it come up a lot, like mechanically, like when we are referring to maybe the roof structure, like you kind of want to make sure that you're actually identifying what they're actually using, and then also material in general. Like for example, this normally is covered in the specs, like what materials are okay to be used. I'm not speaking to just the roof materials, but just materials on the job in general. Like normally the specs cover you with what materials are allowed from what the owner wants to use or what they allow, because not all owners allow always the same thing. And you want to make sure that if you're pulling in a detail that your stuff matches. Like, so for example, say you're so maybe piping specific, say the owner doesn't like using PVC for a specific type of piping. Like you want to make sure that a detail you pull in isn't referencing PVC piping, because clearly it's going to be a problem. Like it will, your drawings say one thing, but your specs say another, and contractors don't necessarily look at the same thing. Like they're not gonna like look at both and be like, hey, these are different. What should I use? They're gonna pick one, and the one that they pick might not necessarily be right.
Yep, that's very accurate. And if these are legal documents and if they're contradicting and the contractor picked one, well, most likely the court's going to side with the contractor because best I remember, the courts favor the person that didn't write the contract. So, yeah, I completely agree with that statement. Symbols abbreviation page. All right, so again, on the front end, you're going to have note symbols and abbreviation page. Here at our company, we have general notes, symbols, which based on how long this is taking may not work. Yep, ain't gonna work. Let's go. edit some symbols. Oh wow, they changed this quite a bit, huh? Okay, I'm gonna simplify this for YouTube purposes.
That looked very different from the last time I've seen electrical symbol.
Oh man, yeah, we were trying to. Okay, so apparently they have been
Now
changing
nothing
things around.
fits.
Now nothing fits. Let's do.
Sorry for
this.
laughing, but
Oh
it's
no,
funny.
this is what happens when you get real time sheet. Let's do it like this. Sure, why not? And then inner notes, and we'll do specifications. What? Okay. Okay,
What happened?
I don't know. But yeah, apparently they have changed quite a bit since the last time I've done this from a blank template out of ours at the company we work for. So
you said you have your own that you typically use now, right?
yes, I'm not going to pull those up at the moment because nothing's open, but we'll just do it like this. Got one. And actually they didn't fit.
Cool.
Anyways, so you'll have sheet specs or something to that effect here. Yeah, you'll have sheet specs on one page on one sheet, and then you'll have note symbols and abbreviations, and typically general notes on that original note symbols and abbreviations, hence the notes word. Apparently, I haven't looked at ours lately, and they've been doing some work on it. So
normally everything fits on one sheet.
Yeah, normally you're right. I don't know.
Or maybe they assume that you don't end up needing all of it, so you'll delete some of it.
Yeah.
Not everybody does that, though.
No comment on that. Okay, so for the people on YouTube, this is what symbols look like. This is what general notes look like generally, and this is what sheet specs look like generally speaking. It's going to be 1 to 3 pages on the front end ish. Just understand that I'm not going into all the details of that on ours.
In Revit, typically with these, when you pull them in, don't you need to get rid of the little, I always forget what they're called, the title thing, the thing that's at the bottom?
Oh, the view title? Yeah, you can do that right there. Yes, you get rid of that by coming up here, and on ours, it's none. So
honest mistake.
Yeah, and I would do the same thing with that one as well.
You learn quickly when you get your first markups and those are there and they're like, these don't need to be here. And then you're like, how do I get rid of them?
Yep, exactly. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about was sheet specs versus book specs. So these are the easiest way to remember is sheet specs go on the sheets and book specs can come in a very large book. That's essentially what it is. Sheet specs, this is, oh, they P8 this too, didn't they? Okay, so in my sheet specs, I still have the division number in each one. Apparently they got rid of the division number and just put in general information across the board. So me as an EOR, before I actually use these sheet specs, I'm going to go and read every single word on here just to make sure I agree with it, just to make sure it applies to our project, and just to make sure it's not like PA specific or Virginia specific or Florida specific or whatever. So if I'm going to put my seal on this, I have to go through and read all this. And as I'm going, I'm going to also clean up some of the misspellings and the double spaces and the weird things that I see. But apparently it's still in progress.
I learned this recently, and I don't know if I'm going to say it right, but like typically, like you said, like you normally put the division that it belongs to in it. Definitely with book specs, but probably sheet specs is helpful too, because this is the part that I'm not sure if I'm going to say it right, but like normally when you get like submittals back from a contractor or anything like to look at, normally they do it and they reference the division it belongs to. I saw that recently. I don't know if that's typical, but like they normally reference it so it's easy to go to, okay, well, I got the submittal. It applies to this one. Now I need to look probably at just this division rather than kind of trying to hunt down which one you need. Is that true? That normally they normally submit them that way?
Submit them under a specific division.
Yeah, like, and you
Yes.
reference they reference, and we're supposed to reference the division that they belong to,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. That is exactly how that's supposed to go.
Not
Now
always done
for
that way, but
yeah, for a lot of the projects I've worked on recently, no, it's like, oh, we're going to call this, 260503, but it's going to have 5 different things underneath it. If these were larger projects with larger budgets and longer, times, longer construction times, I would have kicked them back and said, no, each one of these needs to be a submittal because of stuff. But I mean, it's a $50,000 job, start to finish. Like I'm not worried about small potatoes like that. But when it's $80 million wastewater treatment plant, for instance, no, you're going to submit these under each individual division. You're going to mark clearly what you are using, mark out what you are not using, because you can have one submittal for 600-volt conductors, and it's going to be 200 pages long. By the same token, so people on YouTube, her and I are familiar with the differences between sheet specs and book specs, but we are also using what are called division numbers. And the quick story behind these is this is kind of the second revision of what these division numbers look like. I believe electrical was 24 for like decades, and then I want to say around 1992, 1994, somewhere around there, like this new numbering came up. Might have been 2004, I don't remember. But anyways, this new numbering came up, and like now electrical is 26. So anything under the 26 header would be electrical. And we have obviously several different subdivision numbers in here. So these are all electrical specifications that we can use to define with words exactly what we want to use. I'm going to go find a very common one. So for instance, 260529. Like everybody across the board understands that 260529 is going to be hangers and supports for electrical equipment, right? That's just how that works. That number is not going to change, or it's not supposed to change. It can. It's not the end of the world. It's not anything illegal if they change it, but generally speaking, 0529 is going to be hanger supports for electrical systems. Okay. This is what sheet specs look like. I'm going to collapse this. Those two. As you edit these, you're going to come in here and delete what you don't need, change, modify, add, whatever else. Very simple and easy. It's probably not the best one I could have grabbed, but nonetheless, actually, there we go. Okay, coming back in. All right, so this one's actually a little bit better. So 260523 is control voltage for electrical power cables. So if I don't have all of this stuff on my project, I'm going to just straight up delete it. I don't need it. I'm going to take it out of there. So when in the submittal process during construction administration, when the contractor submits submittals, anything associated with basically control voltage cables should be under this header, should be under section 260523. Okay. Anything you submit after this thing's been approved is not getting approved, and they better figure something else out or send a revision, something to that effect. And that's essentially what she is saying is everything should be under this header, this section, and subdivision numbers, period. And that's generally how I run my construction administration, unless it's some dinky little project that just, it's not going to hurt nothing. So, did you have any additional comments to add to that?
No, I just know that like when we did use this on a project, it made it a lot easier finding the right submittals and and like anything that applied to them. It's way easier when you organize it based off the division it belongs to. It's unfortunate when you're given things that aren't referencing the right divisions, or they just group everything together, but it's better on your part if you can kind of organize them so that it's easier to kind of track, at least on the construction and administration side.
Yes. Yep. and for future reference, you can kick it back. You can deny it and be like, submittal was not reviewed. Submit each whatever under each individual header. That's totally fine. I've kicked back a lot of submittals because of that. Like on the larger projects, like they'll submit 800 sheets across 5 different subdivision numbers under one division header, and I'm like, no, this is not. You're going to make a
like,
problem
we're
in
not
the
doing
future.
this way.
Yeah. And usually whenever I kick it back like that, I'll have them go through, like I'll add it on there. You're going to mark every single sheet with, what division, what, is this 2.10, is this 2.11, strike through what you're not using, highlight what you are using. Like, I kind of crack down on them like that, and they hate it because it takes so much more time, and it's very time consuming for them. But when it comes to stuff like that, contractors that normally submit 800 pages of that, they're usually trying to cut corners, and well, that's usually where very expensive mishaps become later on. And if you've got very well documented information, there you go. You struck through this. You're not supposed to be using it based on what you told me. Yet I see it right there installed. You have to remove this, and you have to put in the right one at your expense. Like, that's essentially how that works. So.
Yeah. I don't know if this is I don't know if this is gonna make a whole lot of sense, but like is it typical, like, because I know there's stuff like eBuilder and all these different, I don't know if it's, you would consider it like an application or program, but like they typically use stuff like that now when it comes to submitting, and I'm gonna use the word receiving submittals. You don't always necessarily receive them on there because you sometimes get them via email, but like do you only get stuff like how am I going to explain this? Like mainly because I haven't been a part of it, but when it comes to those, like, and you're using programs like that, do you always receive and send using those, or do you only like send them after you receive them on those? Does that make sense? I don't think it makes sense. That's the problem.
I'm going to rephrase your question, and if I
Perfect.
don't ask it the right way, correct me.
Okay.
You're asking me if I don't even know how to rephrase that. Yeah, go ahead and ask.
I don't know either. Is it okay? So projects that use eBuilder, and I'm going to call it a program, the program that I guess organizes your construction and administration, which I believe I'm saying the right thing. Does everything typically go in and out of eBuilder? I'm using eBuilder, it's the first one I can think of and the only one I can think of right now. But do all your submittals and everything go in and out of eBuilder? So, for example, the contractor has something that they're submitting, they put it on eBuilder, you get a notification, hey, you have to review this. You get it, you review it, you send your comments, concerns, whatever, back in eBuilder. Or is it also typical to not just get everything from there, and you can get them in forms of emails and everything? And I guess also to add on to it, not every single project uses applications or programs like that. Some are just via email. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. So yes, if you're using a program such as eBuilder, Newforma, Procore, stuff like that, if you as an EOR or whatever are getting RFIs, submittals in through there, you shall use it to push out the answers. Mostly that's a legal thing. Mostly it's an organization thing. But if you're getting it one way, you stick with whatever way you're getting it. And if you're getting it in multiple directions, you as an EOR should choose one direction to push it. So if the contractor sending you emails and Newforma requests and whatever else, choose one. And normally Newforma, or the program which you're talking about, is my preference. As much as I don't like them, it is much easier to go back and look at them legally in the court of law whenever things hit the fan. Of you sent me an email and then I responded, according to your email question dated something, 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 you asked this question right here. My response via new format is this. So that, when the courts are looking through all the stupid stuff, or you're trying to go back 6 months later and go, what was I
Where the heck is
thinking?
this?
Yeah, what is this? It's all right there. The primary concern is be consistent in how you do it. That's like 70% of the issue right there. Just be consistent however you do it across all your projects as much as possible. But the other issue is, okay, you might have to come back and figure out why this happened. Why did you answer this? Where did you answer this? Stuff like that. So.
Gotcha. So the answer is just because they're the owner, whoever is choosing to use the software, doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to get things from other locations. But if you do, you should typically stick to using it because they're using it for a reason.
Correct. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. And always obviously track it on your end too, like have folders in your own personal project files saying like these are what we actually sent, just in case stuff pops up.
Yes, it's accurate. And sometimes contractors have problems. Like I get that, and I have empathy for them. Okay, that's fine. If a contractor can't get into new Forma because whatever, or they're consistently having problems. Oh, okay, well, great. Respond via new Forma or eBuilder or whatever. I'm just saying new Forma because that's the one I'm familiar with. Respond via new Forma, but you could also send it via email to them. But just make sure everything's going through the proper channels. I put that in air quotes that you can't see, because emails are one thing, but whenever it's all laid out, the client can see, the contractor can see, you can see, the CA on all three sides can see. Like there's a reason, like things, new Forma, eBuilder, there's a reason those things exist, and it's so that everybody can see exactly what's going on, the status, responses, and it's not, oh, well, I sent so and so an email. Great. Did anybody CC anybody else? No. Well, nobody else has that email. Well, sorry, kind of out of luck on that one. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. Sorry, is a little sidetracked from talking about the specs, but I know it kind of goes hand in hand because normally, like I said, like you normally get them and it reference a specific division in specs.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I have no problem. I mean, this is open ask. This is an open question. So, how we doing on time? Oh, we're getting okay. All right. So I've got other videos to talk about guide grids. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's this thing right here. There's plenty of videos out on YouTube. This thing really awesome. You snap to it. If you have the sheets with singular views across multiple sheets, and you don't want it bouncing all over the place whenever you're quickly flipping through the PDF, guide grids are awesome. Use them. That's a summary. All right. The last thing I want to talk about was how to review this using the 3-hat method. Okay. What I mean by that is, okay, when you're done with everything, I'm just going to get that, just makes things simple. When you're done with everything, you want to review this. You want to do what's called an internal QA/QC. Something's not working. Okay, anyways, I was going to PDF this report, but I can't. You want to do what's called an internal quality assurance quality check. You, as the designer, the engineer of record, whoever, before you push this up the chain of command or seal it, you want to review this so that you're not having stupid things that somebody else is calling out that you should have caught. So you're going to put on what's called your drafting hat, then you're going to put on your engineering hat, and then you're going to put on your contractor's hat. Those are the 3 hats. So you're going to go through this with a drafter's eye and look, like this, is it off kilt? Is it not squared up? Does it look wrong in the PDF? Does this need to be squared up? Oh, hey, look, I didn't fill out these notes. I need to either delete them or fill them out. I forgot to label stuff like the lights here. That's the type of stuff you're looking for from a drafter's perspective. Are you consistent? Is there text or labels in here that are blocked or you can't see or you can't read in the PDF because that's just how things are set up? So that would be the drafter's hat. From the engineer's hat, yes, you're going to go through all this stuff as well. Making sure that all your engineering judgments are sound. You're also going to make sure is everything sized accordingly, which obviously we haven't done, but nonetheless, Great. Did I actually size this conductor? Is it written down somewhere? Because in quite a few of the states that I am familiar with, if they ask you for your calculations, you better be able to show them. Now, one of the cool things about that is if you have a program called Bluebeam, you can PDF this in the design and actually do your calculations on there very easily. Not that, just type in how you got to your final number and then save it under your calculations folder on whatever server you're supposed to be saving it on. That's what I do quite frequently. That way, if anybody ever goes, how did you get this size? Great. I go pull up that PDF, and normally I'll put NEC references in there, especially if it's something I'm not incredibly familiar with. And this code says this, that one says that, so I followed the other one because it was, a stringent requirement, and I sized it like that, showed my basic math, and ta-da, I get a number 8 right here, which, as a reminder, I literally threw this in here last video. I don't know if it's actually sized properly. So that's the engineer's hat. Make sure everything is actually engineeringly sound. And then whenever you put on your contractor's hat, ask questions to yourself, like, how am I physically building this? Like, how do you want me to physically get from this utility transformer over to the MTS? Can I go underground? Can I go overhead? What trench do I need? How deep does it need to be? Do I need to put any backfill? Do I need to put anything in the trench as far as like mag tape or anything like that? How do you want me to go from the MTS? How do you want me to mount the MTS? What conduits do I need? What conductor style do I need? THWN, XHW, USE, so on and so forth. Now I'm throwing out all these random information, but these are the questions you're supposed to be asking from a contractor's perspective. How do I physically build this? What materials do you want me to use? Is there anything dumb in here? Like, I want you to run a number 8 to this receptacle. You can't physically fit a number 8 into the back of the receptacle, so you can't physically build that. Story behind that, not going to get into it, but concepts like that is what the contractor's hat is supposed to be representing. So I kind of flew through that real fast. Do you have any questions?
I don't think so. Because you've gone through those 3 different things with me before.
Okay, fair enough. So people on YouTube, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I actually do read the comments, the comment sections, by the way. I've only gotten like 4 or 5 in any of my videos, but in the future, if you're like, I don't understand what you meant by that, or I can't understand your voice, cool, put it in there. I'll respond, and let me know. I think that kind of sums up and concludes our episodes, our series on electrical drawings. Do you have anything else you want to add? Questions? Anything else that I might have missed that you want to see?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. All right. Well, that's about all I've got. If you think of anything else, let me know, and I can add it in the description eventually.
Sweet. Sounds good.